as much as I love them, the famous indie rock band They Might Be Giants said something that really put their finger on something in our culture that I really wish wasn't there. Tune in for how it works in the workplace.
Welcome to It Doesn't Take a Genius.
Ramsey!
Did you see the dramatic zoom in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the production value on the zoom in was good. You leaned in, the camera leaned in, the audience leaned in, both
Still
of them.
not sure. Yeah, who knows what's happening.
So, yeah, we have no idea why stuff just works. Stuff just stops working in this day and age.
Absolutely,
We have
100%.
no idea why. We're just going with it. I think it's just our Skynet overlord practicing taking over stuff.
Which things can I monkey with and see what happens?
Look, I'll stop this and then I'll start this. Hey, I can do that. Yeah. Noted. And then it just moves on. All right.
Well,
so
anyway.
what are you talking about today?
I don't know. This is something that I thought of a while back, and it is a picture into my foolishness, I suppose. But there's a song, I think it's on their first album. No, it's not on their first album. It's on their first breakthrough album. But They Might Be Giants, famous. They're I guess they're in their 60s as of now. They're early Gen X. They would definitely be proto-hipsters. Okay, they were hipsters before we talked about hipsters. They were in Brooklyn doing indie music when punk and new wave died and something new hadn't come about yet, and they sort of filled this void of very intelligent, intellectual, I think you could probably even call it art rock. They did a lot of really weird, cool things, and I love them. I think they're the best American band. But they have this album, they have this song. The song is Your Racist Friend. And it's just I think it's an early glimpse at the cancel culture that millennials popularized so well. And the chorus says, I feel like a hypocrite talking to you and your racist friend. And it's, they're at a party, there's a guy who drinks a little too much, and then he starts saying something racist, and it's like, I got to get out of here. Ugh, I just can't even talk to this guy. This is disgusting. I get it. I mean, I hate racism too. But that song is always sort of stuck in my head like, I don't know, I guess. And I heard the British comedian David Mitchell, who has been on a lot of British shows. He had his own sketch show, That Mitchell and Webb Look, which is just phenomenal. Way too much dirtiness for us to recommend it to the family audience, but it is really, really good. And he's on a lot of the modern panel shows, quiz shows, game shows that the British are so good at doing on TV. And there's a new one called Last One Laughing, where basically, they put a bunch of comedians in a room and they're not allowed to smile or laugh as they each do ridiculous things to each other. And in the course of a back and forth, now, David Mitchell, late Gen X, right? I would guess early 50s. I think you could describe him as an anti-hipster. If you're familiar with David Mitchell, he kind of is famous for being like into history and tradition, and kind of doesn't like to see all the technological changes that are happening. He's just anti-hipster. And this is sort of an alternative approach that we could have taken. The person sitting across from him, they have to keep responding to each other in the show. And the guy says, I hate racists. I hate bigots. And he says, I will tolerate bigotry in order to influence people. So that's the statement. I will tolerate bigotry in order to influence people. Versus, I feel like a hypocrite talking to you and your racist friend. I can't even talk to you.
Right.
So I think that there's something there that is happening in our workplace. Maybe it's working itself out as Gen Z joins the workforce and Alpha after that. But I think we've gone through a sort of a cancel culture period that's still kind of in the water, where you want to distance yourself, so that you don't feel complicit in this, thing that you are hearing from somebody else. that you just don't want any part of. You don't want to be around their bigotry or what have you. Versus staying engaged, which is kind of like one of the things that this podcast is about, is engaging employees, right? And having good customer experiences. So, even when there's something objectionable out there, I still want to have some influence over the folks. So I'm going to, I'll tolerate bigotry in order to influence people because I'm going to stay engaged with them. So that is my big thought. I've said what I can say. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. We can end now. But do you have any thoughts that came to your mind as I went through my little diatribe there?
Well, I'm thinking about, and our audience, not now because we need both of you, could Google this story. But there's this wonderful story, and it's this African American fellow, and he's been able to get multiple members of the Klan, to leave the Klan behind. Right. To convert from, you talk about racism and bigotry.
Literally.
Right. These guys are, they're at the top of their game. And so he's been like he has conversations with them to the point where they hand him, literally they've given him their robe, their hood.
Amazing.
And said, I can't believe how wrong I was in my beliefs and how I was raised and how I embraced it and things like that. And the way he does it is exactly by doing what you're talking about. Is he sits down and starts talking to him.
Right.
Just one-on-one, like,
right.
All right, questions, it's questions like, okay, so you hate all black people. So what is it that you hate specifically about me? And they're struggling to find an answer. Like, well, let's talk about, all right, so tell me about your family, right? I'll tell you about my family, right? And they have these guys, and all of a sudden they're best friends and they're hanging out together. And versus the alternate idea of I could make signs and protest the Klan.
Right.
I could lobby for laws to make it illegal to be in the club. And this guy said, no, I'm gonna get rid of it just by getting closer to it,
right,
instead of separating myself from it.
Yeah.
And to see if I can have an impact that way. And it's just an amazing story of leaning in and going towards it versus standing back and pointing at it.
I love that example, and think how well it goes along with the episode we just released about Hansei, the self-reflection concept from Japan. You and I spent a lot of time in that episode talking about how the goal was to kind of have a conversation, possibly with yourself, right? Like it's possibly that dialectic that you have with yourself or with your team or with your coach or whatever. But why are you doing it? You're wrestling to the truth, right? You engage somebody in conversation, even a Ku Klux Klan member, and you're helping them get to the truth of what really is real about races, instead of some of their concepts that are not true. And that only happens if you're willing to engage. I think so. Just in case anybody's lost as to why we're covering this on the podcast, it doesn't just have to be racism, right? In fact, there is a Louisville coffee shop chain that fired an employee shortly after two employees quizzed her about her beliefs on homosexuality. Like we can't even have you here, right? And I won't even tell you which one was on the right and which one was on the left. Just use your own conclusions if you want to. But the idea that we can't even be in the same room, we can't even have you on the payroll, and that is another social issue. I get it, but man, they're all social issues, right? The prima donna employee who's kind of toxic, right? Like I don't want to. I feel like a hypocrite being around this person who is so ugly in their actions. It could be even less than that. It could be just the kind of employee who they're just a little obnoxious, right? And politically insensitive to what's going on within the company, right? They're grumpier than we typically are in our culture, or overly optimistic, and our culture just isn't like that, right? You got that one person in the meeting who just doesn't seem to fit, and do we do we engage that person, or do we put a boundary around that person? And I think that's maybe the question at the core of this, is like the discernment level needed for how we go about helping this person change, right? Instead of helping this person exit the company or be sidelined or isolated or whatever it is we might do. Because how's that ultimately going to help, right? Like if it's not a fireable offense and it's somebody who brings value, how's it going to help that we isolate them instead of engage them? I guess that's the thing I keep coming back to.
Well, it's such good points, and yeah, you could take it down even one notch less than that, which we talk about the DISC behavioral styles.
Yep.
And
Yep.
how the people 180 from you, right? If you're a high D and the other person you're interacting with is a high S,
Yep.
right? They're opposite from you on the circumplex. Those tend to be the people we struggle to interact with and
Yeah.
want to be around. And so just the behavioral style being different, right? So you got this far extreme of racism, bigotry. Our values are completely opposite, all the way down to, well, our behavioral style. That person's loud and talkative, and I'm more introspective, right? We automatically go, I can't be around them.
Yep.
And when you look at it, you go, okay, what could I learn from this person?
Right.
What is it that drives their behavior, and how does it serve the organization? Maybe it brings something good to it, right? There's value and strength in what they can do that I don't do as well. But just to label it different, therefore bad, therefore isolate it,
Right.
it's not helping. I always think back to the quote. It's attributed to Abe Lincoln.
Yeah.
Nobody can prove it, but he said, "See that man over there? I don't care for him very much. I need to get to know him better."
I love it. I love it.
It's like, yes.
The humility built into that, right?
Yeah.
I don't like him. It's probably a me problem. Let
Yeah,
me figure
yeah.
out what I need to learn more.
What have I not done in order to figure this person out?
Right.
And so the idea of, yeah, and we ask this question all the time in our training. How awesome would it be if everybody on your team, everybody in your family was exactly like you?
Mm-hmm.
And people go, yeah, no, 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 no.
Right.
It's like the last like 3/4 of a second of, wow, yeah, no, I know me. That would be bad.
Yeah.
All right, so by default, you're saying that diversity, different styles, different viewpoints, different opinions, different strengths are preferable to having everybody exactly like you. Well, now we got to go value those differences. We got to go find out about those things. We
Yep.
got to get closer to it versus running away from it.
That's so well put. And I think what I see happen, you're helping me think this out, because it's, on the one hand, it's the issue, whatever the thing is that's polarizing to you versus the other person, or the team culture versus the one person. But on the other hand, it's now you have to engage if you're going to address it. So we know that millennials tended to be sort of pro-cancel culture. The phrase problematic, right? That was their term. Tiny little microaggressions were problematic, right? To the confusion and bewilderment of the person who did the microaggression, right? They had no idea, but suddenly they were, they needed to toe the line on some political issue or whatever it was. Okay, well maybe that's dying down a little bit, but we still have this tendency to want to sort of, minimize interactions with so and so, route around them, limit their influence, even, right? Not have them able to say as much or do as much or decide as much. So, when that person feels contained, right? When they feel, like they are truly sidelined, they are eventually going to quit, or, as our friend Chris Hunsaker says, they're going to quit and still draw a paycheck, which is even worse. Right?
Yeah.
They're just unengaged. But so here's the thing: is like that may be an issue with millennials, and we're figuring that out. But you still have to engage, and engagement is an issue with younger generations in general, but especially right now, right? We talked about in a recent workshop with clients, we talked about phone calls, right? And how Gen Z, the way it was put to me by a friend who's a college professor, he had been interacting with a very a strong, confident Gen Z person who was telling him, listen, we were taught that interactions with us were an inconvenience for people. And so we don't want to make a phone call. What a huge overstatement of our importance to take somebody else's time, right? So they're immediately drawing back from going in and engaging in a conversation where there might be small talk and trying to get to know somebody and so on. There's a pullback to that. So on the one hand, we've got, let's not do cancel culture. On the other hand, we've got, yeah, but to not do cancel culture, you'll have to talk to people, and that's hard too. So yeah, as I'm thinking about it, I think we need to do like a series of like how to make small talk episodes, or how to have questions with people, like our positive discussion questions that we use so often as we're training people on coaching. Maybe that's part of the solution here. But people just got to talk. They've got to talk.
Nah, let's just post memes on social media and lob those at each other.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, let's just keep doing that. That's working great. We'll just post a meme, and anybody who disagrees with my meme, we will instantly vilify.
I love it when there's vague posting, as they call it, and then there's a follow-up with a meme about vague posting, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and a couple of good points. One is that I was watching, I think it was Mike Rowe's podcast. He was interviewing this pollster think tank guy named Todd Rose, I believe it was. And he was talking about when they do the polling, they find that the American population across the whole population are in agreement with about 80%
yeah,
of life and what's going on in the world, and that like 80% of it we agree upon.
yeah,
But you would believe, based on social media, that the country's never been more divided. And for anybody who says the country's never been more divided, I would encourage you to, I don't know, read up on the Civil War. just going out on a limb there. Maybe that was a little worse. But the idea that, yeah, we're really in agreement. And I had that happen. I was at a social gathering. There was 5 or 6 people at a table, and a friend of ours, and we were talking about the state of the world and how everybody's so divided and anxious, and this lady said, she goes, do you think it's all falling apart? And we said, no, I think we're in a lot more agreement than we think we are. And we started talking about certain things, and we're all sitting there like, yeah, no, I see it the same way. We all left going, all right, maybe it's true. And so the idea of getting to know people. Your second thought, there's a lady now who's making the rounds on podcasts. I can't remember her name, but that's kind of her thing is body language, and then teaching people how to have interesting conversations with strangers.
yeah.
Like instead of the classic "How's your day going?"
Right.
Nice to see you. Yeah, fine. She's teaching people, and we might share some of her learnings.
Neat.
about, yeah, how do we have better conversations with the people close to us and the people in the world that maybe um,
Yeah.
one person called them the people you see every day but you don't know, and the
Mm.
term I've heard is familiar strangers.
Yeah.
So who are the familiar strangers in your life that you would like to
Often
get to know?
coworkers.
Yeah, yeah, people on your team. So yeah, there's huge opportunities here, and maybe the challenge for the for our audience is for both of you to go out and think about who's your toughest case that you can't get away from, right?
Yeah.
So who's
Yeah.
the toughest person for you to deal with in your family? They're going to be there every Christmas, every
Hmm.
Thanksgiving. Who's the person at work that they're a vital member of the team. They're not going anywhere soon that I continue to have to work with. And can I just go get to know that person a little bit better?
I think that's great. And I think we've mentioned this before. I'm trying to remember his name. He recorded an album with Wilco, and he's British. And Billy Bragg. Billy Bragg. So Billy
Oh,
Bragg
I
said,
was just going to say that. No
listen,
idea what you're talking about.
I'm younger than you, Mike. I can't help it. I have
But
different references.
you're not British. You're, like you did.
Wilco's not British either.
Yeah, it was David Mitchell who did this. It's like, oh, here's my good friend Ramsey who was raised in the UK. No, no, you're from Kentucky.
Listen, I've been there a few times. I have relatives there, and I fell in love with some British rock and roll and got my hands on Q magazine, which was a British rock and roll magazine, and I think that changed me in a way. So there, you've gotten to know me better, Mike. I think this has been important for us. You
Oh
know,
no, I knew all along. I had no idea what you were talking about.
listen,
Yeah.
you're taking me off my point, which I
Okay,
have.
all right,
learned.
sorry. Back to your point.
So Billy Bragg said I heard him on interviewed on NPR, and he was he's like I don't know, he's like a socialist. He's fairly left wing in his politics, and he was asked, what should I talk to my family about over Thanksgiving, because they're going to be right of me, and he had an immediate answer, which was talk about family. Talk about your ancestors. Talk like you have a common ground there. Like, who do we come from? How did they get here? That's such a good answer. And I think that's part of it. I know it's been discounted in many ways, but how to win friends and influence people talks about be genuinely interested in other people. That will really help you. So can I close us with a series of questions that might help you determine if you've got something to address here?
Are they British?
No, shut up.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
All right. So these are the questions, and again, this is about you've made this boundary with somebody at work. I'm still thinking workplace here, but first question: what am I protecting by creating distance? What am I protecting by creating distance? There might be something legit that you're protecting. Maybe not, though, right? Next question. What influence am I giving up by creating distance? You're losing your ability because you got distance with this person. And then you kind of have this is sort of the commitment level question. Is the behavior truly culture damaging, or is it simply difficult? Is this somebody that I just have to sideline, or are they simply difficult? It's a yes or no question. It's not a exploration question. And then after that, you can sort of ask these questions: what would be the clear standard, the boundary, and what would be continued engagement at the same time that might produce a better long-term outcome? How could I try to do both at the same time? And then the last one, and this is more for the boss. But where have I confused protecting the team with avoiding a hard coaching relationship?
Ooh,
Right,
yep.
just not willing to do the work. Not willing to do the work. So those are the questions. What am I protecting by creating distance? What influence am I giving up by creating the distance? Is it truly a culture changer, a culture damager, or just simple difficulty that I can live with? And then clear standard and continued engagement. What would that look like that would produce a better outcome? And then am I confusing protection versus just that difficult, hard conversation? So those are my thoughts. Thank you, David Mitchell. I love your work. You're hilarious. I certainly hope you're listening to this episode. Wouldn't that be amazing?
We might be giants.
Oh, wow. Full circle. All the way.
Oh, close the loop. Call back.
Don't even need to announce the announcer to close us out. That was just beautiful.
Yeah. Mic drop.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, it doesn't take a genius.
That's good enough.